You're listening to the Wired for Impact podcast.
How much longer do you see the world using the dollar? There's a lot of talk right now about de-dollarization and the movements that other countries are making. And of course, the central banks with gold. Gold's now a tier one asset. How much life is there left in the dollar?
This is a subject of great debate and controversy. I think the dollar is tied up in so many things like long-term bonds and treasuries, that derivative products, that it won't just like go away one day. I think it's going to be one of these things where we're going to have a period where lots of stuff is used, kind of what we saw when the British pound went out and the dollar came in. It's not like everybody stopped using pounds, right? I mean, you can still use it. It just stopped being the global dominant currency. So I think, we could probably use dollars at the local store for a while. The issue will be whether or not the CBDC in the US looks like a dollar. So if I had USDC on my phone, do I consider that dollars? Like when we're talking about it and when I'm going to pay at the grocery store, if I'm paying with USDC, in my mind, is that just a new digital form of a dollar? Yeah. If so, then the dollar has quite a shelf life. Now, whether this is the other exciting thing that kind of ties into this, like Nasara moving to asset-backed currencies. If the US takes all of our gold and uses it to back a US digital dollar, the fiat dollar that we are used to could actually go away pretty quickly, because who wants to hold that when you could hold the one that's backed by gold? So there would be, I think, a pretty quick redemption process for you to swap the old one for the new one. There is chatter in Europe and UK about how that would work. They might not give you one-to-one, or they might not let you exchange all of it. We'll see how that plays out. So to me, I think I want the fiat dollar to go away, and I think it's going to go away, but I think the brand, the dollar will exist in a new format that was backed by gold, in my opinion.
It's pretty interesting just to see how much we're still talking about XRP and the explosion of value, but we're still defining it in terms of dollars. Like what happens if there is no dollar? How do you're going to be thinking of buying a house with half an XRP or something? Like we just mentally are so ingrained to think of value in terms of dollars.
That's when I think the shift will happen to the next reserve currency, is when we start to think in that currency. Now, as Americans, we're spoiled. Like if you lived in, Zimbabwe, you would probably think in multiple currencies. Or if you even just lived in Europe, some things are priced in euros and some things you just think in dollars. Like I only think in dollars. The rest of the world, I think, it won't be as that big of a deal for them to now think in a new currency. For us, it will be, which is why I think the US is going last. There is another theory that the SEC lawsuit is simply theater, and that everybody's in on it, and that they are doing that to hold the US innovation back, to give the rest of the world a chance to catch up innovation-wise. And that's why a lot of these blockchain projects are happening outside the US, to create this level playing field where the US doesn't just dominate yet again. Other countries have the opportunity to build businesses and infrastructures and compete globally with the United States. And that's why the US will turn on the blockchain money last.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Wired for Impact. If you're interested in creating and expanding your impact, be sure to visit us online at impactnow.com.